Jim, I'll call to order the City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting on Monday, September 20th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Garrison. Present. Commissioner DeSisto. Commissioner Kling. Present. Commissioner Romero. Present. Vice Chairwoman Maston. Present. Chairman Williams.
Present. Okay. The next order of business, we have approval of minutes for our special meeting on August 16th, 2021. Do I hear any corrections, additions?
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Owens seconds the Commissioner Garrison's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously carried. Approval of the minutes for August 16th, our regular meeting. On that date, do I again have any additions, deletions, corrections? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Vice Chair seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously carried. All right, now our next order of business is informational reports and updates. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Good evening. A couple little things I'd like to ask if you could keep your calendars open for October 25th. It's a Monday, 6 o'clock. We're going to look to have a joint work session with the Historic Preservation Commission that evening.
What date's that again?
October 25th. It'd be the Monday after the regular Planning Commission meeting on the 18th. We're still having that meeting. This would just be in addition to it. Looking to do it at 6 o'clock at the Rec Center. So we can get both commissions together. We'll hold their regular meeting at 5 o'clock so they can take care of the business they need to, and then we'll have this commission join and we'll talk about some design review and design guidelines in the Old Town area. Just want to let the commission know that tomorrow evening at the council meeting, ordinance number 706, which is the rezoning of the recently annexed areas, would be going for the second final reading, which would then become effective 30 days after tomorrow if council approves it. Also ordinance number 707, which is the C1 light commercial changes, that's going for a second and final reading tomorrow evening as well. I do want to let the commission know that we inadvertently left out a portion regarding single family homes with a conditional use permit. Should have said it was subject to R3 standards, so it wasn't presented to the commission that way, but we are going to add that back in for council's approval tomorrow night. So that way we have standards to follow for somebody doing a single family residence in the C1 zone. I think that's it.
Okay, very good. Now the next order is call to the public. Would anybody like to address the commission on any item not on the agenda tonight? Not seeing anybody, we'll move on to our new business. We don't have any old business, so that's good. And get my page open. Okay, our first item is DR 21007, design review for exterior renovation of the commercial property located at 971 through 981 South Main Street in Cottonwood, I think commonly known as the Viotti Plaza, where the furniture store is.
Thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. Good evening. As you stated, this is a design review application for the Viotti Village Plaza, 737 South Main Street. It's located facing Main Street in between Highway 260 and Camino Real on the northeast side of the street. Currently the zoning is C1, which is a light commercial zoning. This design review application is only for the exterior facade renovation. There's no changes being made to the overall site, to the square footage of the building, to the layout of the individual units. It's only for the exterior facade. There is a landscape plan that they've submitted, and they're upgrading, enhancing the existing landscaping that is there. This is a picture of the subject site. There's actually two properties that are on separate parcels that look similar to each other. This design review application is for only for the one building, if you were looking at it from the street, the one on the right, that has the furniture store and then a few smaller retail units in there. The site plan, this would be it on the right here. This is the facade along this portion that we are talking about. These are some architectural renderings that the applicant has submitted for what the final result would look like after the renovation. So this is on the left, the main, the larger unit, the furniture outlet on the left, and then the smaller units on the right, which is on the lower picture. And this shows some before and after, the before on the left, after on the right, of what it currently looks like and what it will look like. And so color samples that were submitted by the applicant to go along with the renovation. And just some of the surrounding properties. This is across Main Street to the south, also to the south. The other similar unit to the west, and the property to the east. This is behind the building, actually looking. There's a portion of a hotel back there and an automotive repair unit. And standing out on the sidewalk, looking west, and then looking back to the east. So that is all that I have to show you this evening. If you have any questions, I'm available. Also, we have the applicant here this evening, should you have any questions for him.
Does anybody have any questions of Jim? Commissioner Kling, do you have any questions of Jim? Can she?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Rennie Rodocchio is here, representing the applicant.
All righty. Answer your name for the record, please.
Reynold Rodocchio, and we're the architects, Architecture Works Green. I have a couple of boards.
If you want to take your mask down, it'd probably be...
I do, thank you. I have a couple of boards I'd like to set up, and the drawings are just a little bit more explanatory than what you're seeing digitally. And then I do have those digitally here, which we can show you. Just give us a second here so you can see these. Closer to you guys. Let's put this one over here. So, and maybe, can you plug this in? I have one. Can you plug this in? This is a different one than what you. So Dino Viotti's here also, so if you have questions for the owner.
What? Well, let's see what he has to say first, and then we'll ask questions.
Sort of lost track of
I think this will work. Kill the lights. So we brought these couple of boards so you could see them up close. And as far as the materials, the actual samples are on, I believe it's this board on my, oh, I'm sorry, on that one on my left. So you can get a good sense of the actual materials. So is that coming up? Yeah, it's not showing up on your. Comes some technical assistance. There you go. Center it on the screen there. Move it up so you can see the bottom of the, if you can. So as Jim, thank you. As Jim explained, the renovations are going to be to the main building, which is 917 South Main Street. And we're not doing anything to the interior of the building at all, so it's all on the facade. And this is a series of aluminum trellis type units that are placed both vertically and horizontally, and then also this mesh, steel mesh, which we're going to install away from the face of the existing building, but on the facade. So these columns that you see here, we're carrying those columns up. So presently these columns do exist on the building, but we're refacing them and extending them up. This main part of the home furnishings direct is a steel mesh, which you see in that board on display on the easel, and then mounting these individual letters on the face of that mesh. Can you go to the next one? If we can. Feet.
There's a PDF and there's a PowerPoint. Maybe you can open the PowerPoint and be easier. The second file is a PowerPoint.
The drawing up here shows this elevation here, which is along this main part of the facade, and then this setback area, which we cannot see very clearly here, is this section here. And I wanted to tell you about that, which hopefully Jim will be able to get up here in a second. Yeah, I thought those would just come right up. But we're missing the whole bottom part of the drawing. That's okay. So that'll do it right now. So I just spoke to you about this elevation. This elevation, which are those shops that are set back, we're also doing these aluminum frame tubing units and this mesh along some of the facade. These sign boxes are the sign boxes that are there today. So we're dismounting them, setting them aside, building the structure, and then remounting the sign boxes. So they will not change. And in essence, too, this is pretty much what's there today in terms of the lettering and style and font and size. They will have to be new letters to mount on this mesh here. But again, the concept was not to change their graphic or their design, but to reuse their design that they had. And you can see from these sections here that some of those front sections are going to project forward of the facade of the building, and you can see that we're raising these columns to accept these new individual panels. And then the actual material, there's this galvanized mesh. There's this corrugated metal siding, and then there are these steel panels, and the colors of the stucco are here and here. Can you go to the next one, by chance? So this will give you a better idea, and this is really why I wanted to bring this with us tonight. So this is what we're calling the improved image. So this is what we're envisioning this will look like when it's complete. We are repainting the stucco on the sides and the stucco in the front as well, and adding some detail to these windows in the front, adding a steel frame around the aluminum frame windows to give them more of a individual look. And again, you can see what the building looks like today, and this elevation in particular is more or less what you see here. We did add to the landscaping here. We had to add some shrubs and trees to meet the present code, which are explained here in the planter schedule. I don't know if we've got. So you can see here some of the plantings that we've added to the streetscape here. The monument sign, by the way, we're just painting the steel sign itself. We're not changing any of the graphics or any of the way those individual stores or shops are displayed, just painting the basic box of the sign. And I think that's the last one. Yeah. So if you have any questions, either I or Dino can answer those questions.
Okay. Just real quick for me, first question. What about the other building? Is there any plans for that? Or?
I'm going to ask Dino to...
My name is Dino Viotti. I'm owner of actually both parcels in question. It is my intention to do the other side at some point once that the site that we're talking about tonight is complete. So in the future, I am planning on doing the other building as well.
Okay, real fine.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Romeo, any questions of the applicant or the architect?
No questions for me. Thank you.
No
Mr.
circles.
Garrison, any questions? Vice Chair?
Yeah, one quick one. So it doesn't look particularly reflective right there, but we are in indoor light. And I'm just wondering if you guys have done any studies or checks to see how reflective the metal you're using for all of those facades is going to be, because that is a very busy road, and it gets, when the sun goes down, it can be hard to see.
Yeah, the steel, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, they're just little.
No, you need to come up. With your name, please.
Yeah, they're small. My name is Nadia Beijing. I work with Reddy.
Okay.
So yeah, those small aluminum thing, they're not very big, and it's not like a full facade of them. So I don't think it would be too bad. But when we worked on this building, we also did it all in 3D, so we're able to see with the shadows how it is, and I don't think it would be reflecting to the street, and the building is pretty far away from the street as well, but it's a good.
Okay. Any other questions?
You know, those aluminum tubes are 2 inches by 4 inches, so they're the size of a 2x4, a wood 2x4, and they're a galvanized finish. So we see galvanized finishes all over town, and the corrugated metal is galvanized as well. That copper is a copper that we see again all over town. It's at the hospital. Right. It's in quite a few buildings.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we try to use materials that are familiar.
Right. Commissioner Kling, do you have any questions of the applicant? Okay. I'm having a hard time hearing what. So okay. No questions at the time. Okay, good. All right. I think those are my questions, but reflective nature of that.
Yes.
That white sort of stands out there, and
the white.
But those tubes are just tubes. It's not like a solid white.
No, it's
finish,
not, and there's space between them.
Sure.
And the other big white image is the actual sign, Home Furnishings Direct.
Right.
And that is what it is today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not reflecting, yeah.
Right. And I wanted to be clear, too, that we're not really changing any of the signage. Where those sign boxes we're going to put back up, and those graphics are going to remain exactly as they are. So, just so, and the monument sign again will stay the way it is, except paint color.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. I have one. Do I have anybody wants to speak on behalf and for the public or against? I don't see anybody. I'm going to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Romeo, your thoughts and...
I just think it's great that the building's getting an upgrade, facelift, so I think it's a good project.
Commissioner Garrison, your thoughts?
The southwest design is all going away.
Commissioner Garrison, do you need to push your button?
Yeah, so I like it. It's modern, it's fresh, it's different. It will look a little odd sandwiched between the two older buildings, but it is a way to get that all started, freshening that up. So I think it'll be a nice addition to the area.
Okay. Commissioner Kling, would you give us your comments, please?
No questions, I'm all for it.
You're all for it, okay. Vice Chair?
I am for any of these older buildings getting improvements. I'm actually especially excited for the landscaping improvement, which I think will really help that street feel more human scale. But yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm not a fan of gray buildings, but that's not going to affect my vote.
We can't please everybody.
I know, gee. But no, this building has been a non-plus building for years, when, the design is way out of date, and I'm really happy to see it getting a modernization as well. When I first looked at it, I was looking at all the tubing and the screening, and just I had a little bit of a pause at first. Is it too much? Is it a little too garish? But that's what we're doing, and I think it'll be a really good improvement to this building. I look forward to the other one getting done as well.
Yes.
For that whole property, because
Yeah.
it fits in well with what's being developed there now, with our new buildings we've been putting in there lately.
Yeah, and so Chairman Williams, when Dino came to us, obviously the intent was to modernize the building.
Yes.
So we came up with this scheme, and the other criteria was that present facade of the building, that main fascia, that large element, we really didn't want to tear that apart, and because it would have meant actually going into the roof behind it to do that. So in order to come up with something, we decided to bring it forward of that facade. So that facade still exists in these drawings behind all that tubing.
Right.
It'll get painted.
Okay.
So it was our way of trying to give it a new look without rebuilding the building.
Right, yeah. Yeah, very good, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to entertain a motion. Mr. Vice Chair, if you will, please.
I move to approve DR 21-007 to allow the renovation of an existing retail center subject to the following stipulations. 1, the project shall be developed in conformance with the development plans as submitted for the Planning and Zoning Commission at the September 20, 2021 meeting. 2, the project shall conform to Code Review Board comments dated July 27, 2021. 3, the project shall comply with all planning, building, utilities, engineering, and fire department requirements. 4, signs are permitted through a separate application. Any signs, new, replacement of old signs, or change of face shall obtain a sign permit through the Community Development Department. 5, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 24 months of the Planning Commission action.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Romeo seconds Vice Chair's motion. Any other further discussion? None. I'll have roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling. Vice Chair Maston,
Aye.
Commissioner Romeo,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye, unanimously carried. Good luck. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Just give us a
Yes.
second, we'll take these out.
Good exhibits. Good. Very. All right, our next order of business, while getting down. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, Commissioner Garrison is recusing himself from this next discussion on item. And we'll give them folks a minute here to get there. Very fine. Okay, our next item of business is CUP 21006 at 1050 North Main Street for a conditional use permit to allow an open air marketplace in a light commercial zone. Mr. Paget, are you? All right.
Thank you again, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. As you stated, this is a conditional use permit for an open air marketplace located at 1050 North Main Street. That is along Main Street in the Commercial Historic District on the north side. Presently there's a little U-shape, a small little area, courtyard in between a few other buildings. Zoning is C1. It is within the both the Commercial Historic District and the Arts, Culture, and Entertainment District. The conditional use permit is for the use of the open air marketplace. There is not a specific site plan or elevations that correspond with this. Each day each week. It could have a little different layout depending on the vendors that show up on any given day. They have been operating currently with a temporary use permit that was granted. They went to a code review board, and Planning Commission has granted them, which is for 3 months pending their coming before you with their request for the conditional use permit. There is a parking area located to the rear behind the buildings, owned by the property owner for the open air marketplace. That's proposed to be used for the vendor parking once they come with any vehicles and equipment they have. They would be off the street and not taking parking spaces for customers coming to the site. Proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 4 to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Since the site is within the historic district boundaries, there's no additional parking requirement placed on this use. A few pictures of the site. This is the little courtyard area, and that's the building located to the south. Different view of the courtyard, and that's the building property to the north. Their existing signage. This is to the back of the courtyard area. It's behind this where there is an open parking area for the vendors to park. Again, the property to the north, to the south, and to the east across Main Street. And there's a public parking lot also across the street, across Main Street. Street view looking back to the south and to the north. So that concludes my comments. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Anybody have any questions of Jim?
Has the city received any comments about the market since it's been going for a little bit?
I haven't received any comments, pro or con. We haven't had any.
No, we haven't received anything.
Complaints that we're aware of, or any support.
Commissioner Romeo?
And is this, I noticed that the hours are, Monday through Sunday, but currently there's only one event there, and it's the farmer's market on Wednesdays. So is this intended to be a week-round event with alternating vendors, or is there, what is this intended
That's what they are proposing, is that it would be a daily activity. And probably the intensity of it would depend on the vendors that show up on any particular day. Some days you may have full, and other 1 or 2 tables with small vendors.
Commissioner Kling, do you have any questions of Jim?
No, I think it's a great use of space. I did have a question. Looking at these photos, we were provided the subject site as you're looking at that little castle. I don't know if it's, I was wondering if there was ever plants in that lower spot there where you have your signs that you can see between the pavers and that little half wall. Was that ever landscaped?
I believe she's talking about this. Are you talking where there is a little A-frame farmer's market sign in a small landscape area?
Yeah, so it looks like it's rock right now, and then you have that small half wall, which I don't know if it's been painted since then, but I just wondered if like some low plants there were an option other than the possibility that they might get stepped on.
That would be a good question. We could ask the representative if they wanted to address that, to add additional landscaping in that
question.
area.
Good question. All right.
Not important, just curious.
No, good question. All right. Jim, who's here for going to speak for the applicants?
Christian Del Rio with the Chamber of Commerce. And Jim Ariola. Okay.
with the Old Town Association. We're actually both representing the Old Town
All right.
Association. I could answer your question that yes, the Chamber of Commerce has actually received a lot of comments about the farmers market, and I don't know if you've had a chance to get out there yet. Awesome sourdough bread with chocolate cherry. It's excellent. A lot of great events. The Chamber is also hoping to host events there in conjunction with the Old Town Association. So as far as landscaping, I'm sure that's probably something we can discuss. I don't know if it looks like that's actually a planted area, but it's probably something that we could address. Do you have something you'd like to say?
Hi, everybody. I'm James Ariola. I'm with the Old Town Association. I'm currently the treasurer. And I'm here to basically endorse and recommend approval of this conditional use permit for this open air market in Old Town Square. The intent is to have an open air market for the use of the community, and hopefully that means pretty much anybody who wants to use it, but nonprofits and local Old Town entities mostly. I'll just read one sentence that kind of describes it from the letter, which I'm sure you have seen. We want to create a communal space for businesses and nonprofits to utilize for the benefit of the community. We seek to create an open-air marketplace to provide a setting with high exposure and low upfront costs for individuals, small businesses, and community groups while supporting specific nonprofits in town. As you know, we already have a temporary use permit, and we've been having the weekly farmers market on Wednesday evenings, which I think has been a success. Most recently this Saturday, the Verde Valley Wine Consortium used it for a wine tasting event during TVR. I think they had over 100 attendees at that. And also kind of a last minute thing, which probably wouldn't have been able to happen using the temporary use permit process, is Mitch Levy had a little honor guard sort of honorarium on Friday of TVR weekend in the square there. And I hope the Old Town Association also hopes to be able to use this square for some of their fundraising and community events, assuming this is approved. So as I mentioned, there's already a temporary use permit. I see from the staff summary that there were no objections, subject to some stipulations, which I'm sure the owner is willing to abide by. And as far as landscaping, I would as a treasurer of the Old Town Association, I'd say the OTA could volunteer to pay for some plantings in that little strip if that's amenable to the owner. So with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Commissioner? Any questions for the applicant? No. Vice Chair?
No.
Commissioner Kling, any questions for the applicant at this point?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Garrison, as owner of that property, would you like to comment, please?
Just 1 second, don't leave, gentlemen. The reason this area hasn't been landscaped, and you're right, there's about a 2-foot section between that wall and the pavers. That part of that is city right-of-way. But the primary reason that hasn't been landscaped is about 5 years ago when we started the whole process of building this square, and bocce started becoming a thing and started their construction. We were trying to work on getting a fence up to run down the top of that wall. But finding welders right now is very difficult, and also we were trying to create a design that didn't block the view of the buildings in the back from the street, because then it wouldn't do any good to have them on the street if you can't be seen. And so we were told or given direction way back about 5 years ago not to do anything with that area until we actually got a fence up, because we would be creating a space that people would want to gravitate towards and then walk off the walls. So we were told to leave that area blank, so it created a buffer between the usable area and the wall.
Okay. Very good.
We do have plans to landscape that once we get a fence up.
All right. Okay. Does anybody else want to address the council or the commission, I'm sorry, on this banner? Very good. Not saying it. I want to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Romer, your comments, please.
Yeah, I think this is great. My only complaint about the farmer's market is there's not enough space. I would love to see it expanded into the parking lot across the street if possible. And then also, just a note to the city, everyone crosses the road from that parking lot to Old Town Square, and they don't use the sidewalk that is just up from it. And I would encourage the city to think about relocating the sidewalk to where people naturally cross the street.
Yes, good point.
Yes, thank you.
The crosswalk, yeah, they need a crosswalk there very much so. Commissioner Kling, your comments, ma'am.
No, I think it's a great use of space, and that makes sense with the landscaping. You know, it was just aesthetically, and I could see, I didn't know if there was some water damage there, I couldn't tell, or if it was a watering issue, so I appreciate the clarity. And yeah, that corner coming around Boschi can be a little difficult to cross, because you don't see what's coming down the highway, so whatever we can do to make that safer, I think is ideal. Otherwise, I'm all for it.
Good. Vice Chair?
I think that I'm just going to echo my fellow commissioners' comments. Really good point there about that crosswalk. But in general, yes, I think this is a great use of that space. I think it's good for the community. I think anything that helps small business is good. Good on you. Good.
I certainly agree. That's a great use, and but I would like to see the Old Town Association work with Mr. Garrison, and I like that idea of a decorative type fence. You know, you can see through, but adds some decoration with some landscaping. That would be a great idea. We're not going to make that a condition, but just as a suggestion when you can get it done. And I'm looking forward to being expanding more than one day. That'd be great. And super use. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion, Vice Chairman.
Okay. I move to approve CUP 21-006 to allow the use of the open courtyard area for an open-air marketplace at 1050 North Main Street, subject to the following stipulations. 1, that the project is developed in conformance with the site plan submitted with this application and reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 20, 2021. 2, the project shall comply with the temporary use permit requirements as reviewed by the Code Review Board on June 8, 2021, and with all department requirements as specified with the temporary use permit approval dated August 10, 2021. 3, signs are permitted through a separate application from the conditional use permit. Any signs shall obtain a sign permit through the Community Development Department. 4, the City of Cottonwood reserves the right to revoke the conditional use permit if the use creates an irremediable public safety problem as determined by the city.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Romeo seconds the Vice Chair motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Kling?
Aye.
Commissioner Romero?
Aye.
Vice Chairwoman Maston?
Aye.
Chairman Williams?
Aye, unanimously carried. Carry on, good luck. All right. Get Mr. Garrison back on the podium. All right, our next item is ZO 21009, amendment to the City of Cottonwood zoning ordinances. And this is basically talking in conjunction with the Old Town area mapping and required statute changes we think we need to make it happen. Okay? Mr.
Correct.
Padgett.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. This has been going on now about 7 or 8 months. The city did receive a grant through the State Historic Preservation Office. We hired a consultant to assist with the rewriting of the design guidelines. And one of the reasons we saw that was necessary is we have the one code citywide that didn't work for a lot of the small parcels that exist in Old Town. So these design guidelines sort of give staff the flexibility to work with a property owner. They would have a choice of either opting in to the standards within these guidelines, which gives them better and more flexible development standards. If they choose not to opt in to these standards, we have the existing code, and how it's written now, they would comply with that. So they do have an option of which route they want to go. This has sort of gone through the rounds of historic preservation to the Planning Commission, to the Council, back to the Historic Preservation Commission. At their last meeting on August 16th, they did make a motion and a recommendation, unanimous, to move this forward to the Planning Commission for your action. Which next step, should you agree with the design guidelines, would be to make your recommendation to the City Council. That would then be moved to 2 consecutive meetings. We're looking at October 19th and November 2nd. These guidelines would then be effective 30 days after that. So December 2nd would be. We have already had a couple of discussions, just people coming in to the front counter with their Old Town properties, and these new standards would work for them, where previously, you know, our hands were tied and there weren't options that we could offer them. So I anticipate that this will be utilized by a lot of the smaller parcels in Old Town.
Jim, could you just sort of give us a summary of some of the highlights of the changes, maybe the more important ones, that we're talking about, if you can?
I think probably a couple of the more important ones. The maximum height of a building presently is 35 feet. Because there's a little bit more flexibility in allowing the parcels to be developed, say with a house and a guest house, that height limit is lowered to 25 feet. So there is a little trade-off there that, you know, they're not gonna, in a street of low-lying houses, then come in with some towering structure.
That would be in the housing area.
Right.
That's not in the commercial though, right?
That's correct. Most of these guidelines affect more the R1 and or the R2 areas. The residential areas are where most of the changes would exist. Right now, the minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet. There's pretty much no ability for any parcels in the Old Town area to develop that with a guest house or a second unit, even though the parcels are zoned R2, which is a multifamily zoning. Just by the nature of the size of the parcels, they wouldn't. These design guidelines, if you have a single family home on a property, as long as it's 4,000 square feet or greater, you could also add a guest house. You still have the setbacks from the 2 structures and from property lines, but it would allow that a little bit more of a intensification of the properties to be developed with smaller units. If you have the R2 parcel and your parcel is at least 5,000 square feet, then you could do a traditional duplex and have 2 units on that. And we've also recently processed that amendment where the duplex used to say it had to be, or 2 units had to be constructed as one building. Now there is flexibility on a parcel that's 5,000 square feet to place those 2 units that make sense for that specific parcel. I think those are a couple of the main highlights of what this would allow. Is there anything else you can jump out?
Basically, to put it simply, Mr. Chairman, it simplifies most of the development standards. Like Jim said, a lot of these parcels are undersized, and They can be developed, but it puts tremendous restrictions on what and how big. So we're relaxing typically the setbacks, which I was going to mention. Some of the changes that we made in here since you have seen it last as a discussion item, we went ahead and just clarified some of the language on opting in versus, so people don't think it's required, they have that choice. Clarified what happens if you do opt in versus not opting in. I know Vice Chair Maston had a question on that 3+10 on the side setback. We went back and re-looked at that and decided it probably is not necessary, so we just made it a straight 5-foot setback on the side yard. Reduces that for other places, so that's where we're at with it now.
Very good.
We also kept the setbacks at 5 feet. At one point, we had discussed possibility of 3 feet just because of the size of the parcels. But then if you had two houses on different parcels, you'd be 6 feet from each other, and that wouldn't meet the fire code standard or requirement now of 10 feet. And the 10-foot, the 3-foot plus 10-foot, the 10-foot came from being on one side of the parcel that would give access to the rear portion of the parcel. I guess there's cranes that can lift things back there if you want something back there.
Yeah, right. Okay. Commissioner Romeo, any questions of Jim? Questions? Commissioner Kling, any questions of Jim? Commissioner Kling, are you with us? Did we lose her?
I'm here, I'm sorry, my mute was on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions of Jim on this item?
No, thank you.
Vice Chair? Yeah.
No.
Vice Chair Maston, I'm sorry, you had a question at the last meeting on the top of page 7 about the architectural, the new, not mimicking. That wording was changed in there. Did that make a little bit more
I think it's helpful.
Clarification on?
I think it's a little bit more clear.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I noticed that you changed it.
Okay.
Mr. Garrison?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Well, one primarily, and I know most of this really has to do with this historic overlay district area, but we're also going back and revising commercial residential, and one of the additions you made, so it's on page 3, it's number 9 of your section 420. It limits, which what?
The food and beverage thing?
Yeah, it limits, and we had a discussion about noise and all that, but it limits the total establishment to 1,500 square feet, including outdoor seating area. By the time you put a kitchen and any type of seating whatsoever, it's going to be hard to have anything more than a 5 or 6 table boutique diner in the CR area. And so that just seems to be, to me, that seems way too small. I mean, I could see 1,500 square feet of seating area, but 1,500 square feet of total use, that seems too much by the time you have to remove at least a third of that or more for kitchen and supplies and staff and whatnot. So anyway, that was my biggest concern over all this. I think the rest of it, I really appreciate all the work that's gone into the forethought of some of these other things and getting rid of some of the problems that we've been, or you've been experiencing, I guess, for the most part, when it comes to putting more residential in some of these areas.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garrison, I can help answer that, maybe shed some light on that. The CR zone is obviously commercial residential. That commercial aspect is very, very light commercial, even more so than C1. So what we don't want to happen is somebody to go in that CR zone and open a huge restaurant, takes up the entire property with a lot of parking, a lot of this and that. If they're going to open a restaurant to that scale, they'll probably look at doing a rezone itself. So this is meant to kind of keep that transition area between full-on commercial and actual residential. So any restaurants going in there will be a lot smaller than what you typically see.
And I get that, but if you think about the restaurant right here, across from the Fajol Brothers, what
The
was
old
that called?
Abby's Kitchen.
Abby's Kitchen. She's at like 2,400 square feet, and there's only like 10 tables in that place, counting the porch. And I know she had a catering kitchen in the back, a facility that was quite a bit larger, but she also had parking in the back, as well as 2 sheds that were used as storage and food, storage. So I get what you're trying to do. I'm just wondering if 1,500 square feet is just not going way too small. And we've got quite a few restaurants, if you drive up and down Main Street, that are bordering residential, on an alley in the back and Main Street on the front, and they're significantly larger than 1,500 square feet. And I don't know that we've had any significant problems with any of them. But, anyway, it was just, to me, that just seemed to be too high a barrier. I think it's going to really diminish the amount of boutique restaurants that people would want to put in an area where it would be nice to have foot traffic associated with the use versus having to drive in.
I would certainly second. If we talked about 1,500 square feet of seating here, just change the wording. To me, that'd make a lot more sense. And I don't think you'd be creating a big monster restaurant with 1,500 feet of seating, including outdoor. What's your thought on that, Commissioner Garrison?
Yeah, that would be, I think, just give a whole lot more leeway.
Yeah, not open it up full bore, but restriction, but maybe just change the, instead of total floor area to...
Maybe public area, more specific than seating.
Or, 1,500 square feet of public area.
Public area.
Yeah, which is including the outdoor seating.
Okay.
And
So that way their kitchen's not included in that square.
that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see that being, opening up a real can of worms personally either. I think that's a good point. Any other comments, questions? How about that issue there, Commissioner Romeo?
I think it was a great point, and I would be in favor of those amendments, yeah.
Commissioner Klain, do you have any comments on that square footage?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. I would agree. If we just change that wording just for, instead of total area, total floor area, we'll say public area including, and just change, instead of total floor area, be public area.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, whoever does make that motion, if they can include that as part of that motion moving forward.
Yeah.
So we'll change it when it goes to council.
Yeah, right, okay. Any other discussion, anybody? Before we move on to a motion? Is there anybody in the public who wants to speak to this issue? Okay, fine. Okay, not hearing anybody, I'll close the floor to the public. Commissioner Romeo, what your overall thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm in favor. It makes things easier, and yeah, let's move forward with it.
Great. Commissioner Kling, your comments, please.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yes.
Looks good, all right. Commissioner Garrison.
I asked around between the last discussion we had on this and tonight to see what others in the Old Town area specifically thought about the changes that were being proposed. And for those who had dug in or at least read everything that had been sent to them and were paying attention to the work that was being done, they were very much in favor of it, especially with the opt-in clause. They didn't like the idea of another layer of government being thrown on top of what they had to do, but they did appreciate that it did allow them to decide for themselves whether it worked for them or not. And from those who really had dug in, they were really happy with the amount of burden this removed from some of the things they want to do and haven't been able to up till now without a fight. And so they were really appreciative of it. I'm kind of excited to see how people take advantage of these new codes and move forward with doing some things that haven't been done for a while. So thank you for all the work.
Vice Chair, your comments, please.
Ultimately, I think these changes are going to make it easier to maintain the fabric of Old Town, which I know is really important to a lot of the people that live here. And so I'm extremely in favor.
Good. I do appreciate, I think it's the first time in my experience on this commission for 12 years that the Historic Commission has had a vote and recommendation to us. In years past, it was always, well, they looked at it, but no decision was made. So that's helpful to us, I believe. And yeah, this has been a long time coming. Congratulations, staff. I think you've really done a tremendous job on this. And I'm glad the Historical Commission is on board with it as well. I think it's going to be, it just cures so many problems, as Commissioner Garrison says, and look forward to, because we really want to continue to make the Old Town area a vibrant area, not just die off because we're over-regulating it, I think. So this is good.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Real quick, before you do call for your motion, I do want to put on the record, subject to new state requirements, and I apologize, I don't remember what bill that was. We do have to put on the record that this does not affect the cost of housing in the area. This text amendment does not affect the cost of housing.
Do we need that part of the motion?
So it does not need to be part of the motion. We just will need to inform the commission that based on the changes we've had here and staff's view of it, it's not going to affect the cost of housing.
And the other one is we're now down zoning.
Correct.
Which is very important, which has happened in some other cities. So we would definitely want to avoid that. Vice Chair, I will entertain a motion, please.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council the proposed amendment to replace Section 427 in its entirety and making related revisions to Sections 405, 413, 414, 415, and 418 regarding optional design guidelines for development standards in the Old Town Cottonwood area, and to revise Section 420D, number 9, to read, food and beverage establishments shall be limited to 1,500 square feet of public area, including outdoor seating area.
Can we get a revision to that to include Section 420, not just 420.9?
Oh. And the entirety of Section 420.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Commissioner Garrison seconds the Vice Chair's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Kling?
Aye.
Commissioner Romeo?
Aye.
Vice Chairwoman Maston?
Aye.
Chairwoman Williams?
Aye. Unanimously carried. Very good. All right. Mr. Director, you or Jim, you have a discussion on the possible I-1 rezone?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commission, staff has been contacted on the possibility of rezoning some I-1 property to the west of State Route 89A north of Black Hills Drive. There's a vacant property out there right now for the possibility of putting in assisted living facility, residential assisted living facility. I know that the commission did discuss this with the City Council back in July at that joint work session. We do have a couple of folks here though who would like to get input from the commission on if it's even worth going forward with trying to do that rezone. I know it's not always been favorable to change I-1 zoning. That is all we have in the city for I-1 zoning. Mr. Mike Weiss is here to discuss what they're looking to do.
Very good. Sir, you want to come forward?
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Mike Wise with Arizona Prime Real Estate. I am the listing agent for the assemblage of 6 parcels. The one you see in the, yes, that one, thank you. That is the one that is I-1, and then there are 5 others that are comprised of C1. And specifically, the one that they're asking for some consideration from Planning and Zoning is the I-1. They would like to do 3 pods of assisted living there. And it's the largest piece of undeveloped land available on the market. That is what has drawn them to this site. All utilities are either on site, which would be electrical. APS has drawn a cabinet there. Sewer is to site. Water is at the end of the pavement of North Alamos, and natural gas is right in here, in this neighborhood here. And of course there's power lines that come along this side, and there is, I think that there's fiber optics along here. Certainly underneath this high transmission line, there are fiber optics for communication purposes. Thank you. But they approached me, and I approached Ron Corbin, and Tricia Lewis and Scott was in on a Zoom meeting where they presented did you bring the plan that they had shown?
It's in the commission packets, yes.
It is, okay, wonderful. That their concept, a rough concept that they would envision being there. Absorption for I-1 has been extremely slow as the Cottonwood, the Verde Valley has changed in their, we're more of a tourist residential area now rather than a production manufacturing facility. And I know when these lines were drawn, there was the thought that we would like a balanced economy with industrial, that type of thing. That's not the way that Cottonwood has gone, or any other town in the Verde Valley. A lot of it is due to the fact that we don't have rail, we don't have a lot of trucking that comes in here, so we don't have the manufacturing. So that's their purpose. They would like to build these 3 pods of assisted living facility. They will provide jobs. I think that they will provide internships, if you will, for Yavapai College nursing program. I have not had personal experience with these folks before, but they seem to be well-financed, well-funded, very sophisticated in their presentation, and they've been great communicators. Any questions?
Any questions, Commissioner Romeo? Vice Chair, any questions?
Yeah, are there any alternative sites?
They had considered an alternative site, but I got a call this afternoon that they've rejected that site because it's not large enough for their needs.
And then speaking of size, I noticed on your site plan, and I'm sure this is very preliminary, there's a lot of open space in the back. Does the client have any plans for all of that square footage?
Not that they have expressed to me, and thank you for bringing that up, because it does back to residential on the west side, and then there to the northwest there is residential there as well, albeit separated by some land.
That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Klein, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Garrison, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, one is a map showing the numerous parcels that are being proposed would have been handy, versus all we got was this map. We didn't even get that. so I looked it up on the county, and it appears that 2 or 3 of the parcels there under the C1 zoning are also included in this application. And I was kind of curious why there's a want to change C1 to multifamily as well as the I1 area.
The commercial zoning on the front, where you see the C-1 just below the W, that's the parcel just above that one, and then the wash parcel are all part of this. But because of council's recent designation where they will allow some residential type of use in C1, the problem for them is that this particular developer is that the parcels that are along 89A they totally comprise about 3 acres, which is not enough for their development. Does that answer the question?
No, I'm mainly asking, why would you include the C1 area at all when it looks like your plans really only encompass the I1 area?
That is true. And I don't think that they're including, from the design that they submitted, the C1.
Those were some of the parcels that were listed out as being part of this application.
They are part of the listing. I don't know that they're part of the development plan.
So really, at the end of the day, the only parcels you're really looking at needing a modification on is the 2 parcels that would be the continuation of Alamos, and then the I1 where this 3-pod center is being designated or designed.
That's correct.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yes, Commissioner Garrison, just like you said, though, the letter from the potential applicant does include all of those parcels, listing a total of approximately 16 acres. That one piece of I-1 is about 13 and a half, a little under 13 and a half acres. So they did not indicate what their plans, if any, would be on that C1 property.
Okay, because I mean, we're looking at the extended care facility, but I was curious if there was an expectation of transitioning between this parcel and the highway as multifamily, if that makes. But there's no intent at this point to do any development on the C1 other than this on the I1. Okay. Thank you.
What about all the vacant multifamily parcels along Mingus? They would be much better suited for this project than this parcel.
We just don't have the acreage for anything that is available to accommodate.
On those parcels on Mingus, they're pretty big. All along Mingus from Willard west. There's quite a few number of, particularly on the north side, I think. Maybe not as much depth, but lengthwise, I would think.
Well, it also becomes a matter of cost. I don't know what the listing is for those, but I know they're multi-billion-dollar listings. And this one is 1.6 million, or just roughly about $100,000 an acre.
Right. And
I'm sure that also factors in the overall cost.
I don't disagree, but I just think that's a much more suitable area for this type of project. We've got senior apartments, we've got Cottonwood Village. And there's a lot of potential on that along Mingus, in my opinion. There, I'm still leaning. Even when we talked about this in July about, okay, we're not going to have an Intel moving into Cottonwood, but there are some smaller industrial uses, not necessarily manufacturing. They could very well utilize this property. You've got some vacant industrial buildings right next door, I think, is last time I looked. And I just think that we need to, this is the only thing left. you know, and from that aspect, and it'd be very suitable for an office, warehouse type facility, as well
Brewery.
as
Brewery.
a brewery, yeah.
Distillery.
Yeah, I just live down the street. I could walk to the brewery. Yeah, that's right. All right. No, yeah, I'm very reluctant personally to modify that I-1 zoning. This looks like a nice project. My wife is in care. That'd be great. We need more care facilities, good ones, in this city. That would be a real plus. I just don't think this is personally the right location.
And since we've moved into comments, one thing that I wanted to add too is that this particular I-1, it's right in the middle of a bunch of other I-1s. So what you'd effectively do if this project were to go forward is you'd be splitting that up, and like it makes it a lot less actual industry friendly, because then you have this residential activity happening like right in the middle of what would have been industrial. It would be different if you were on the far side.
Right. Mr. Garrison, you have to go.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot going on with this. I probably have been the most vocal about losing our I-1 areas, our industrial areas, because we have so little of it. But after the discussion last time and Mr. Corbin explaining that part of the emphasis of the development around the airport and the newly proposed RV park out to the south of the airport is to start moving some of our industrial actually in those directions instead of necessarily under the flight path. This area was designated I-1 back way back because it was under the flight path, and so it was deemed more appropriate for commercial use rather than residential use. This puts it right at the far end of what would be, that nuisance, so to say. I think it's a great design. I like the design. I like that they kept it up in that front corner. I really like that there's commercial there next to it. I don't want to see that disappear. But I'll tell you, in discussions I've had, with local brokers and local real estate agents, and then also with everybody that's working on workforce housing, this was one of the areas that was really looked at as a prime area for workforce housing and large multifamily development because of its size, its space, its access to transit, its access to the highway, its access to all the utilities. It really is an ideal location to put a higher density use. They put it up in that front top corner, which I think goes a long ways towards separating it from your single family residential, which those on Lio Drive tend to be the larger lots, and that's been a very quiet area for a long time, so it shouldn't disturb them. And it does leave a little bit of room gathered around it to do some expansion in the future, because I think they'll find that this is going to fill up extremely quickly. And so while there may be better places around town for a development like this to go, I don't think it's necessarily a bad project for that area. So I would be in favor of that. We can leave the C1 alone.
Yeah, if it was differently zoned, location-wise, I think it's fine. It's whether we overcome the I-1 rezoning, I think, is what's tough to sort of stomach. I think the council's going to have some problems with that as well going forward.
I will confess to you that in one form or another, I have worked on this project since 2006 to find the type of user who you have just described.
Yeah. I've
not been successful.
Yeah. Well, it may come down to what, this situation, because we don't. You're very correct. There is a limited amount of developable space for any good-sized project that we have, and it's filling up fast. Yeah. So, but we'll see. But I don't know if this gives you a feel one way or the other. I think that's what you're sort of interested in. Going forward, and so Does that answer your questions a little bit, or do we confuse you more?
Well, I think that not really an applicant in this situation, but the
No.
interested party, I guess that would be what we would say, is looking for clarification from planning and zoning.
Right.
And I don't know that that's a vote item, but
Well, it will be down the road. We're just discussing tonight and kicking around ideas and different opinions from the commission. Commissioner Kling, you want to weigh in on this, please?
I'm not heavily swayed either for or against it. I'm kind of neutral to it, but I think, the rest of you are probably a little more familiar with that area, just being local. I'm new to town, but, I'm pretty neutral to it at this point.
Okay. Commissioner Romeo.
I would be curious to know from staff about Mr. Corbin's comment that I don't think I was present for, but how much, if we do relocate some of our I-1 towards the airport, how much land is available for that? Can this be replaced somewhere else, or is this truly all there is?
This is all there is for I-1. The industrial areas around the airport is all in I-2. It's heavy industrial. Problem we'll run into is going from I-2 to I-1 and limiting that use even more, especially in the airport area. Again, that would be up to the commission to move that forward and then ultimately city council. But as was mentioned, that is part of the airport flight path. That is where the planes will fly directly over. I know that even some of the I-2 area that's just south of there, you can kind of see it below south of Black Hills. A certain extent of that becomes part of the airport safety area, where it makes it even more difficult. I do believe this is just outside of it, but it's still within that flight path that could become an issue. One of the biggest things with the commission for years and council for years is it is all we have for I-1.
I think this project is phenomenal, and I wish there was another location for it. I would not be inclined to want to rezone this I-1, especially it being in the middle of that kind of 3 parcels there. I hear you when you say that you've been working on this project since 2006, and I think, Cottonwood has reached a whole new level of trajectory since 2006, and I'm hopeful that you find the right buyer for this property, but I don't think that this project is the right fit for this property.
Vice Chair.
So I'm normally one of those that's more in favor of rezoning things, but in this case, just because of how it's cited, I'm a little bit more hesitant than I would typically be. And I think what would make me a little bit more open to this is if it either the project hugged the C1 a little bit more, just trying to find ways to keep I-1 areas open, either hugged that C1 side more or came down and was sited on the other half of the property, the southern half. And the reasoning for that is then I think it has more space on either side for someone else to come in and actually use that I-1 zoning as originally intended. Like if you get neighbors down the line, it doesn't, cut them off and basically destine this area to become residential and semi-residential. So that would definitely sway me. I think the way that this is cited right now, it unintentionally, it changes the whole tenor of what should be a lot of land and opportunity, and would start snowballing it all into residential.
Yeah, my house backs up to North Absco across 89A. I get a lot of airplanes flying over my house. I don't mind it, but some of them are pretty low. This definitely would be in a flight plan. I know for years, being on the commission for past 12 years, that some mistakes were made in the county on the south end. There's a number of houses that probably subdivisions should have never been approved. of the airport, and we get a lot of complaints. Luckily, we haven't had any bad crashes there. We've had a couple crashes going north when I first came up here in 2005, 6, 7. And to put a multifamily use, even a care home, I get real queasy about that as well, because this, there'll be definitely a lot of airplanes taking off and landing, coming in over that facility, I can guarantee you. It's just the nature of the beast, particularly when they want to go to Sedona or come back to Phoenix. They're going to make that sharp turn. And I think an industrial use of some type would be much better for that property. Commissioner Garrison, any further comments? Okay, I think you get at least from us, we can't speak for the city council. You'll need to talk to them possibly as well, but.
Thanks for your consideration.
But thank you very much. It'd be a great project.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Director, that we have to discuss tonight?
No, sir.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So Commissioner Romeo moves. I second. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody.